Hello everybody, welcome back to another video by Jay Bowman. Today I'm looking again at one of my favourite synthesizers. We have the Mask1 by Kodamo. Yet again, I don't really have a detailed plan for this video. I had a free evening and I thought I'd just turn on the Mask1, maybe look at a couple of patches I've come up with recently, maybe do some live patching as well, and just see where things take us. So that music that you heard just then was being sequenced by my MPC. It's a very basic sequence, just 3 parts, all playing the same patch, which is this patch here. Now, this patch is one that I really like the sound of. For some reason, it makes me feel very nostalgic, but it's based on a waveform, or a Bitmask, I should say, that's quite specific to the Mask1, which is a fairly new synth. So it's, in some ways, it's quite odd that it makes me feel nostalgic. So let's have a look at the masks. So we've got 2 operators playing, 2 oscillators playing, I should say. And they're both using mask 15, which is the half sine. And I really like that mask. It's got some harmonics, but not too much. It's like a filtered sine wave without using the filter. So if I go into the filter, you can see the cutoff is 0, but that's because it's in high pass mode. So in theory, the filter is having no effect. I think the first version of this patch I did actually had the high pass filter set at 20, which you can see cuts out some of the bottom end. It just gives it a lighter flavour, but if I remove the filter altogether, so it doesn't rely on the filter at all. Let's have a look. Let's change it from high pass to low pass. There's no filter envelope there. So if I play it now on low pass mode, obviously you won't hear anything because the filter cutoff is just down at 0. Or you hear a very slight bit of sound. So there's no filter at all having any impact, although it does feel filtered. It's got that kind of softened, mellowed flavour to it. So let's just check. So oscillator 1, level 50. Oscillator 2, level 50. Attack, decay, sustain. Settings are the same for both oscillators. So they're both playing actually an octave below where they should be. Let's have a look at the tuning. So oscillator 1's detuned -3, oscillator 2 is detuned +3. So that's giving it that kind of natural chorused feel. So when I go into the effects, you might think the chorus would be on, but actually there's no chorus, there's no effect in effects 1. And there's no reverb or anything, so this is just completely dry. If you add a bit of reverb, as I was doing in the music to start with, so what are we using? Reverb 1, which is a nice, big, large reverb. You can hear it's just rounding out the sound very nicely. But the sound doesn't even really need it, to be honest. It's got that kind of vibe to it. So let's say no effects. LFO1 is modulating the frequency with a sine wave. So that's the kind of standard vibrato effect that every init patch you load up comes with that setting. So it's the amount is 4, the speed is 11, frequency is the destination, and the wave is sine. If I turn it off, it just loses a bit of movement. LFO2 is at a very slow speed, just changing the frequency, so it's giving it a kind of wavy, out of tune, analog vintage synth kind of vibe. Probably can't even notice it if I turn it off. It's just very subtle, it's in there adding to the flavour. And we've got a very tiny bit of noise as well. The level of noise is 1. If I turn it up, you can hear. So that's very nice. So by default, obviously you can filter the noise as part of the patch, but you've also got this frequency option in the noise setting. So it's not quite like filtering it, but it's giving the noise a flavour. It's kind of just ducking it down in the mix of the patch there. Is there any modulation going on? So velocity is routed to filter, but it's having no effect. Mod wheel is going to LFO1 amount. It's the standard kind of increase the vibrato setting. Aftertouch is going to the filter as well. So you can hear there that with the setting on the high pass filter, obviously I'm then able to take out or reduce the low frequencies with the aftertouch. So that's the patch. Would it be interesting to try and work out how this differs from a filtered sawtooth wave? So let's see. I will save. I'll save it to 120, and then I'll also save it to 121. So we've got two patches next to each other which are identical, except for 121, I will change the masks to 7. In actual fact, I don't need to do that because I can use the compare function to see what the difference is. So there you have the unfiltered sawtooth wave, and already you can hear the difference. Just by comparing the sawtooth wave to the half sine there, you kind of get, hopefully you can hear what I'm going on about when I say that this sound has nostalgia there. It's kind of... Okay, so obviously you wouldn't use the sawtooth like that. You would filter it down. So let's go to low pass and okay, so the next thing I need to do is I will need to lower the semitone of the sawtooth patch because by default the half sine plays an octave below sawtooth. So I need to do that so that we can compare them. So let's do that. So you can really hear the bite of the sawtooth wave compared to the half sine, which just is very smooth. And I think playing around with the filter, you're just never going to get it to sound all that similar to the half sine. Let's see if we increase the tracking. Okay, so by increasing the tracking on the filter, we got a bit closer, I think. But it's just, they're very different sounds. You know, half sine to me is what I imagine a filtered sawtooth wave sounds like, but I think what we've just demonstrated is that they've got very different qualities. What about comparing it to a sine wave? So let's go back. So we'll change from half sine, which is 15, to sine wave, which is 31. And we will need to increase the semitone by 12 because the sine plays at an octave below the half sine. So again, the difference is quite clear. First of all, with the two sine waves, with the chorusing, you're getting phase cancellation. So sometimes you're not hearing the note at all because of the phase cancellation, whereas with the half sine, there's very little, if any, phase cancellation, so you can always hear the notes. And then it's just clear that there's much more harmonic content there, so let's have a look on the FFT. So there you can see there is some harmonics just about. Obviously the fundamental is very strong, but there it looks like it's kind of, as I say, like a filtered sine wave. So you've got all the harmonic series, but just a lot lower in amplitude than they would be for a sawtooth wave. That's the half sine. Let's have a look at the sine wave. So there, it's just the fundamental. There's nothing at all above it, and you can see the phase cancellation, the kind of going in and out. So yeah, the half sine has its own quality, very strong fundamental, but all the harmonics are there as well, just much reduced in amplitude. So it's yeah, I really like that Bitmask. It's probably one of the masks I use the most. So I just wanted to talk quickly about that patch. Which I came up with recently. Let me have a flick through, see if there's anything else. So that's an interesting patch. I've kind of forgotten how that was made, so let's have a look. Both oscillators are playing. So oscillator 1 is playing 31, which is the sine, as we know from just now. Oscillator 2 is the sawtooth, so that's 7. There's no attack on either, but the sine is decaying away quickly, but it's on full sustain, so it doesn't matter. Whereas the sawtooth, there's no sustain, so the decay lasts for a while, then it's gone. The sawtooth has a lot of release, whereas the sine wave has no release. So there we're just hearing oscillator 2, the sawtooth wave, because we're just hearing the release stage there. Whereas if I hold the key down, the sawtooth wave will fade away, because there's no loop. So all this is happening just with the sine wave. So it sounds like there's some mask movement in there. Let's have a look. No, not on the sine wave or on the sawtooth, so there's no mask movement. There's no ARP going. No pitch envelope. So what are the LFOs doing? Because I can see from the glowing lights that both the LFOs are doing something. So LFO 1 is modulating filter cutoff using the stepped wave, which is like a kind of a bipolar square, but with a stop in the middle. Whereas LFO 2 is random and is modulating mask position. So that's where the mask movement was coming from. At a speed of 6 and amount of 3. So because of that, it's slightly deceptive to look at the masks for oscillator 1 and oscillator 2, because neither of the basic mask positions that we saw when we looked in the oscillator settings for those oscillators will apply, because you've got a random wave modulating the mask position for both oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 together. Because you could change it you can have an option for the LFO just to modulate oscillator 1 mask position or oscillator 2 mask position. Let's hear how that sounds if we go for oscillator 1 mask position. So there it's just the sine that's changing its position. The sawtooth is staying the same. Whereas if we change it to oscillator 2 mask position, here you've got the sine wave, just the sine wave. See, there you had a straight sine wave, but you still had that kind of buzzy sound. So that's not coming from the mask position. So what's going on? That must be coming from the filter. So I think I've identified how that was caused. So the filter's got a -10 setting, so it's applying negative modulation to the filter cutoff. Attack 2, decay 2, release 13, but it's looping. So the filter is being, as well as being modulated by the LFO, it's also being modulated by the looping envelope at audio rate. So let's take off the effect of LFO1 altogether. And LFO2. So that sound is the audio rate modulation of the filter. So we can use the looping envelope as an additional LFO for this purpose. Which is great, and we can change the shape and speed of the LFO by changing the attack, decay and sustain portions of the envelope. So if I increase the attack portion, then the LFO or the envelope rate will slow down. And the other interesting thing is, obviously, because the sound that's sustaining is the sine wave rather than the sawtooth wave, the effect of the audio rate modulation of the filter is reducing over time, because the filter doesn't have that much effect on a sine wave. So the sawtooth dies away, the audio rate modulation of the filter fades away with the sawtooth. You can still hear it a little bit, but so changing the sustain level has an impact on the loop as well. So that's that sound. I'm not sure how useful that would be musically, but it was quite an interesting mystery to unravel. That's an early version of the same patch, and you can hear there how musical the filter is with high resonance when you ping it, which is happening there. So the resonance is 25, so the maximum is 30, so that's nearly full resonance. You can hear it's almost like a drum skin when it's hit like that. Yeah, that patch I went through on a previous video, so I'm not going to talk about it again now. I'll put a link, if I remember, to where that video is. So this is another patch, I suspect, using Mask1. So I won't go too deeply into it because we've had quite an extensive look at Mask1 already, but so that's the other patch we looked at before, and you can hear how different they sound. What's this one? Reese. Apologies everyone, I just had one of those catastrophic failures where my video stopped. I thought I'd restarted it, but something happened and I just lost half an hour. So I think we were looking at the respace, and I was saying that the Mask1 is not the ideal synth for this patch because there's no unison mode as things currently stand. So the maximum number of oscillators you can have stacked on one note without getting into MIDI tricks is 4, so 2 patches layering up 2 oscillators each. So that's the sound. I wouldn't buy the Mask1 just to do a respace, but it does plenty of other stuff. So let's have a look at that. So what's the next patch down? It's Tinkle. So as you can probably tell there's some mask movement going on. And I've got the filter cutoff mapped to the mod wheel. And that's all there is to that patch. Okay, weird. Let's have a listen to this one. So I think arguably this sound is one that could only be made with the Mask1. Looking at the two LFOs, we can see that LFO1 is making the pitch of oscillator 2 decrease using a down ramp. So that's the falling sounds you can hear there. LFO2 is changing the mask position of oscillator 2. So that falling sound is not only being modulated in pitch, it's being modulated in mask position, and quite a lot at a reasonably slow rate. So obviously there's some noise there. I'll turn the noise off, and I will turn off oscillator 1, since we know that the interesting stuff is going on in oscillator 2. So the mask position is being changed. So we're not hearing one wave shape here. It's being changed by the LFO2, as I say, reasonably slowly, but by a decent amount. And the start position is also changing a little bit, very quickly at audio rates. So let's turn off the LFO2 altogether, and let's turn off the pitch modulation as well. So this is the sound of so it actually is starting very high. So it's at semitone 60. So that's, you know, four or five octaves above where it should be. So if I turn it down to normal pitch, the mask position is being modulated very quickly, a small amount. As I turn up the start point for the envelope, you can hear that effect more obviously. If I reduce the start point back down to where it was, to 2, then it's very subtle. It's something like just adding a bit of distortion to it. But of course, it's not just that simple, because LFO2 was changing the start position of oscillator 2. So the delta envelope will have a different impact as we move through the masks, as we're being modulated by LFO2. So you can hear that at some positions, that small quick change is having a very distinct buzzy sound, whereas at other positions, the delta mask envelope is having very little effect. So this is getting into what I called the third dimension of Bitmask synthesis. We've not only got, it's not quite there, but we are not only modulating the Bitmask position, but we're also modulating the start point for that modulation of the Bitmask position. So we've got modulation of modulation. So Again, I would claim that this is probably a sound that could only really be made on the Mask 1 because it relies, at least partly, the most distinctive part of this sound relies on the mask position being changed, and it's quite subtle because there's a lot else going on. You've got the pitch movement, you've got the noise, you've got the other oscillator, which we haven't talked about. But yeah, that's probably enough to say about that patch, but it's quite interesting. So that is the half sine patch we looked at earlier, just called something different. Twinkle, I think we looked at that. Oh no, so this is a patch I made for the kind of ambient tune I came up with, or the kind of semi-generative ambient tune I made recently, which I'll put a link to here. It used this sound. Just playing with the filter of the Mask1, which, as I say again and again, is digital, but it sounds really excellent. So here, it's kind of an attempt to come up with a kind of whirly patch, or maybe some kind of other mellow e-piano. You can see the LFOs are both going at the same speed and rate, the same phase, I should say, phase and rate, they're phase locked. So one is modulating volume for tremolo, and the other is modulating panning to try and get that kind of retro '70s e-piano sound. I'm not sure how convincing it is, but I think it's a nice sound anyway. 102. Bit of a harp sound with some noise. Okay, this is the ambient pad. I did a video where I actually made this patch, which I'll put a link to here, I guess, somewhere up there. And this is probably the favourite patch that I've come up with for the Mask1 so far. You could say the bass layer is very bread and butter, it's kind of standard pad sound, but then you've got just a bit of interest there from the layered sound, which is the high Bitmask changing effect. What I would say is that the Mask1 is a 12 voice synth at the moment. I think when it's released it was 10 voice. They increased the voice count to 10. But what that means is when you layer a patch, it then goes down to 6 voices. So at that point, you're playing 2 notes in the left hand, 4 notes in the right. So you could hear the voice stealing there, triggering the envelopes again, which is not ideal. Of course, if you take off the layer, then you still get most of the effect. I'll start again because it was still had some voice stealing there. So there you get the full 12 voices, so that's the choice you have to make. But yeah, that's a lovely sound. So this is... This is my attempt to replicate the patch that you hear at the start of Tang Pan by Tangerine Dream, which is a really lovely kind of pinched panpipe sound. I've no idea what synth Tangerine Dream used for that patch originally, but I compared them pretty closely while I was trying to make that sound, and I think the Mask1 comes very close. It's quite a versatile synth in that way. So yeah, it's just using 12 dB per octave standard filter. So we've got a square and a sawtooth. Interesting. Actually, we've just got a square because the sawtooth oscillator 1 is turned off. So that's that sound. Really nice. Okay, I think I've probably gone through enough patches. Okay, I think I've gone through enough patches. I did kind of plan to come up with a new patch for the video, but I think I've run out of time for this evening. The light is going, and I think this video is long enough already. So if you've made it through this far, thank you very much for watching. Please give me a like and a subscribe. I hope you found this interesting. It's always fun for me to go through the Mask1, and I really enjoy using the user interface and explaining it to people, and also making patches on this thing. I think it sounds really nice, and you know, it's not a perfect synth. I don't think there is a perfect synth. If you look on Kodamo's website on the support page, I've got a very long list of requests for improvements, for ways they could make this really great synth even better. But as it is, I enjoy playing with it every day, and I can recommend it on that basis. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Goodbye.